Your attention, please. Paul and Alex are required to proceed to the gate immediately.
What?
No way.
What is happening here?
This is the last call for the Layovers podcast.
Really?
Come on, man. This is our thing. We got this.
Oh, yeah.
And we made it.
Of course, geeks.
Flight 63 to Itami, to Osaka International Airport.
Yes, and there's a lovely little story behind that name because it's completely counterintuitive, but perhaps we'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah, I haven't actually been. So, guys, it's obviously in Japan. You know that we've both been in Japan recently. There's so many airports in just that little bit of piece of land around there.
There are.
I've only been to the big KIX, which we've already covered. I'm very curious to learn about Itami. So, we've been to Japan. How did you get to Japan?
I flew on All Nippon Airways (ANA) from London, which was a lovely experience. 777-300 in business class, and it was very, very good. Very good. It's a long way. You forget. Fortunately, that direction, London to Haneda, is the night flight, so you can try and sleep. But coming back, it's a day flight, and it's just, even in the most comfortable seat, you're like, okay, I'm super ready for this to be over.
Actually, interestingly, you probably took the exact same flights I had taken in January 2016 when we, for the first time, were both in Japan together.
Yes.
I mean, this time we were not exactly together, but we actually saw each other. So people were like, guys, you're together, but you're not recording? No, we were not.
Yeah.
We had a good beer, though. And,
We had a lot of fun
food.
out there. I adore Japan, and it was nice to be able to spend some time over there. We were actually over there for 10 days, and we bounced around the country quite a lot, but it was a very pleasant experience getting over there. I don't know what the style of seat is called, where it was 1-2-1, and you have along the window this sort of slightly staggered seat arrangement where one person's seat is slightly more against the aisle than the window, and then the person behind them is against the window with space towards the aisle and vice versa. And it's so that when you extend your bed, your feet has somewhere to go.
Yeah,
so you go and, your feet go into the space where, they have between the window or the aisle.
Basically, it's where the little table sits. It's either on your left or on your right.
Yeah.
Either you're directly on the window, which is slightly more privacy. So which one did you have?
I was in what is technically the window, but on the way over, I was right up against the window. On the way back, I was in a bulkhead up against the aisle, but I could still very easily see out of the window.
Well, you know what? I mean, I don't have time to check that now, but I think I've actually done the exact same thing when I flew a year and a half ago.
That's funny.
So, yeah. So how did you like the seat?
I thought it was very comfortable. Yeah, I thought it was nice. The decor is interesting. It's not ostentatious like an Emirates or even a Cathay, but it is very functional. It's very comfortable. And I remember when we were taxiing out, you sent me a message saying, oh, by the way, when you take off, try and pull the tray table out. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a slightly weird thing to ask, but I did it anyway. And instead of coming out of the armrest or something to your side and kind of coming up and then across you, the table is in front of you and slides towards you on what I found out were incredibly efficient rails. So, and when you're taking off and you're at a pretty steep angle, I opened up the latches to keep the tray slowed, and it flew back towards me at quite an alarming rate. But so that caught me by surprise, and I can see why you said that, because it was pretty. Not aggressive, that's not the right word. But other than that, the seat was very comfortable, especially if you're in the window seat that's closer to the window. You do feel like you have a lot of privacy. Mm-hmm. The screen is nice and big. The IFE is fine. And you have all the bells and whistles, power outlets.
Yeah. Actually, I think I had made the research back then when I talked about that seat. But I think it's a Japanese design. It's not one of the big seat makers. That's their own ANA design.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever seen anything like it. I mean, Emirates and business class have that staggered design, but it doesn't look like this. No. It uses the Panasonic IFE, I think, and they have the camera, but they don't turn it on until at least 10,000 feet, which I thought was kind of interesting.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because when I got on the plane, I was having a look around the IFE, and I thought, I love the cameras. I was spoiled on Emirates the last couple of flights. and I didn't see it, and I was disappointed. And then I was playing around later on in the flight, and there it was. And I made a note of that and looked on the way in, and sure enough, as we were descending at 10,000 feet, that option disappeared.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I don't know what the reason is. I'm sure they have their reason, but yeah, I thought the seat was good. The food was excellent.
I was about to ask you, what did you choose, Western or Japanese?
I had Japanese on the way there and Western on the way back because I wanted to try both.
Yeah.
They were outstanding. They were delicious. The wines were good, but of course, it was the service that really just makes them. They're a 5-star airline and one of only a handful of Skytrax 5-star airlines, and it's clearly the service that got them that. It's extraordinary. It's attentive. It's formal without being stuffy. The anticipated needs. I was just really impressed. I was really impressed with that whole experience. But I also got to do a couple of domestic flights as well, which I'd never done before in Japan.
Also ANA?
Also ANA. One of them was into the airport of this episode. Pardon me, out of that airport. And then we flew from Fukuoka back to Haneda in a 767. They were great as well. Just a really good airline, unbelievably consistent service. Flying in Japan is a joy.
I know.
There's a few little idiosyncrasies.
The number of paper they give you is
especially for domestic flights. Yeah, exactly. You get 5 or 6 sheets of paper before you actually get on the airplane.
One is the boarding pass. One is your gate. One is your seat. One is your luggage tag if you have one. One is usually a map of the terminal.
At Fukuoka, there was a security clearance, like you'd been through security, hang on to this piece of paper, which they then either scan or take away from you when you board. I can't remember. But when we flew from Fukuoka back to Tokyo, that was a 767 full flight, and we didn't start boarding until about 20 minutes before we were due to push back. And I thought, we're never going to leave on time.
But
sure enough, bang on time, we left. Everyone sat down, buckled in, shut up. It was just...
I used to travel quite extensively domestic, but the region you visited, I've usually went with a Shinkansen because I'm also, unbeknownst to maybe people are listening, I'm also a big fan of trains, so I would always take the train. But I've done my share of ANA. I've done also, of course, JAL and Starflyer, which I adore. But what was the one that was about to buy the 380s?
Skymark.
I did Skymark as well to the north of Japan. The one thing that always struck me is how orderly everything was and how no one was trying to, take a luggage that was oversized into the cabin and then, of course, stuck the whole thing. And because that's what usually gets the planes late is that if you have, and I get it, some people will answer, and I'm probably sure I'm going to get some Twitter replies that, oh, you know what? Because, of course, the airlines now ask you to pay for the privilege of putting the hole. So I get it. Fine. But in Japan, it's very orderly and it's so stress-free.
Yeah, everybody boarded when they were supposed to board. There was no pushing and shoving. Everybody put their stuff in their overhead bin. They didn't, like you said, they hardly brought anything on board. It was just a joy. And that we did a 737-800 from Itami to Kumamoto, and then, like I said, a 763 back to Tokyo from Fukuoka. And they were on time. They were easy. They had streaming Wi-Fi and IFE on both of those flights. Yeah, and live TV as well on the streaming devices. So it was great. Lovely service and food. Just a joy. This is what it should be like.
I was about to say, it shows that I've lived in Japan 10 years ago because streaming IFE was something out of science fiction back then.
Yeah, true.
Well, so, I mean, we'll talk, of course, again about both ANA and other airports later, but probably because we've done a lot of Japanese airports, so probably in 2018, we'll get to go to some of the other airports, including Fukuoka, which again, I haven't done. I've done, the train station. Yeah, we should actually do an episode where I talk about a train station. And you talk about...
We did take a few Shinkansen with our mutual friend Joseph, and that was another great experience as well. But yeah, that's something else. Transport in that country is just a joy.
Yeah, it is, right? It's stress-free and everything is on time. Not everything is always perfectly on time. Let's not, again, exaggerate. But that they're going to make everything in their power to make you get a connection, for instance. Yes. I've already told the story many times, so I'm not going to go into what happened to me in KIX, so the other airport in Osaka once, and which is the complete opposite of sometimes traveling domestic in the US or even sometimes in Europe when you're like, oh, oops, like 20 minutes late, I'm going to miss my connection. Yeah. Nobody will take care of me or even think about me.
No, absolutely.
Since you mentioned the boarding, have you seen that BA is introducing boarding with numbers like in the US?
They are, and it's based on how much you paid for your ticket, which has riled a lot of people.
I've seen both, right? Of course, most people are right up, say, it's a walk of shame if you're the last one, meaning that you're poor. I get all these arguments. And I've seen also other people saying, well, you know what? Of course, if you pay like 5 times the price that I paid, well, it's normal that you be. The one thing I appreciate in having an order like this, it's at least from the UK, when you have seemingly 80% of the people will have status.
Yeah.
It seems that everyone is in a priority lane. And then they even have to announce, okay, in the priority lane, please only the passengers who are in Club Europe or Club World or in Emerald or Gold come first, and then it becomes a whole mess. Something had to be done in terms of how to boarding, because BA has never been, in a country, and I'm a foreigner in this country, but in a country that is known for its queuing, it's always been for me like staggeringly crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I think this is fine as long as they stick to it and they...
Correct.
What I found in a lot of places is that BA fly into is that the rules that are applied at Heathrow or Paris or LA or Tokyo or Hong Kong will all be different.
Yeah.
And that's infuriating, especially if you're a frequent traveler with them. In LA, a gold card does not get you priority boarding.
Actually, you know what? That's super interesting that you mentioned that. When I was traveling with Cathay Pacific, they have a line for first, if first exists. They have a line for business class, sometimes premium economy and coach. And on top of these, they have like what kind of status you can access, et cetera, et cetera. Right. Cathay Pacific is a bit confusing, I found, and maybe you've had this experience if you heard about it, or maybe any one of you guys have seen it, is that I was in Hong Kong. I was not in first, clearly. I was in business class going to Japan, commuting through Hong Kong airport. What a pleasure, as always. And there's a sign that says first an emerald, and the next sign says business, an emerald, and below emerald is, I don't remember, the second. Sapphire, exactly. So I'm emerald because I'm gold on BA, which translates into emerald in one world. And I'm like, so can I choose which line can I go in? So, being maybe too Swiss, I hesitated for a while, and I said, what the heck with it. I'm just going to go on the line for first class, and I'm going to see what they tell me. They saw emerald, and I just went through. But it's interesting that it was, in terms of the user experience, I wasn't sure which line I was supposed to choose. Was it maybe a choice, or was it on purpose? I don't know. Anyway, interesting to see how something.
Yeah, I don't think it is still to this day. Nobody has cracked the ultimate boarding algorithm for efficiency and placating those quote unquote valuable customers and passengers. So we'll see how this plays out with BA or how long it lasts. I don't know when they're supposed to be implementing it. I'm due to fly to Luxembourg very early tomorrow morning, so I'll see if they've actually implemented out of T5.
The other thing that is interesting is to see how in at Heathrow they've started putting this automatic gates to board. So basically you scan your own boarding pass and you open. But they seem to be randomly not always, so not all the gates have them yet. And also it seems to not be always in use. And it seems that people who are in priority boarding, which again sometimes feels like it's 80% of the plane, don't have to use them. So it's because, for instance, Lufthansa, it's only gold and above, so HON, which can go through the priority boarding. Those people, and usually that's less than 20% of the plane, will have a person scanning and welcoming to the flight. And then general boarding has gates. Simply people just scan, the door opens and they go through. And of course, there's a person in case there's an issue. But it seems that for BA, they haven't really decided what they want to do. They've installed these gates, but they're not. I mean, maybe you'll tell us in the next episode what happens to you tomorrow to Luxembourg to see what happened there.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. I mean, BA had a serious strategy change, it seems, and they seem to be going very middle of the road, very United Airlines, very American Airlines. Just, it is what it is, but this is another example of that. I don't see this as trying to get people on faster. This just seems just another move to that part of the market, which they seem okay with occupying. But yeah, if it happens tomorrow or in the next couple of flights I have before the end of the year with BA out of T5, I'll let you know if it actually happens.
Yeah, please. Also, you flew ANA, so you flew from Terminal 2. You hadn't flown from Terminal 2 before?
I had never flown from Terminal 2 before.
How was that?
Nice. It's nice and big and bright and airy. And we were working with ANA on a partner project, and so we went in and had a meeting in the United First Class Lounge, which was lovely and very aviation and
Yeah,
airline
right.
nostalgic, themed and decorated. So that was
it's
nice.
it's a fantastic lounge, guys. It's located at Terminal 2B, so the B gates of Terminal 2, which takes 3 hours to walk through because they have it's still disconvoluted, but
Yeah.
it's a wonderful. I'm flying. Oh my god, I'm going to talk about that soon, guys. I'm flying United next week to New York. Yeah, I'm flying United. Me, Paul. I'm flying United. After what I said,
there's pigs flying all over the place right now.
The one thing, I've said it many times, that lounge at Terminal 2B at Heathrow, and apparently other lounges they've been revamping around the world are very, very good. And this one is not only very good, but as you say, they have pictures of old planes, of old aprons, and it is that's lovely.
Yeah,
let's give them that.
It was nice. The food was nice. The service was nice. We weren't there for very long, but it was...
So did you learn anything about ANA?
Yeah, I did. And we talked about this in the last episode. I was still struggle to reconcile in my own mind this strange policy that Emirates have about demanding the pillows and blankets and headphones up to an hour before the flight arrives at its destination. I just think that that's weird. And we speculated on this last episode that it might be because they need to turn the plane around quickly on the other end, or they're trying to save some time or some money or something. But as an aside of this project with ANA, I learned that the crew stay on board for much, much longer after the flight has landed to clean it.
Oh, wow, themselves.
Yeah, so they have a proper deep clean crew come in and restock everything and vacuum and do all that stuff. But they will help prepare for that process. There's no give me your blanket or headphones or anything like that. They all stay as a team and prepare the aircraft for the incoming crew and for the cleaning crew, which I thought was very, very impressive at a corporate culture level and at an operational level. I was just impressed by that.
It would be nice to compare with the policies. Of course, this flight, it's not a quick turnaround. They don't have 5 flights a day going to Tokyo, so they have a little bit more time. It would be still interesting to know what are the policies of many of the other companies, both at the hub airport and at non-hub airports or destinations, to see how they operate. It doesn't surprise me coming from a Japanese airline that they would actually do this and that they would ask the crew to do that. I would be interested, maybe because I know that we have some of people working in airlines listening to us. What's the policy? And of course, low cost might be totally different, but like in traditional airlines, would they ask the crew to stay and help clean the aircraft? I don't know, to be honest.
I don't think it's like a lot of, heavy lifting or scrubbing, on their knees or anything like that. It's just
removing the blankets and the basics.
Absolutely. Like, what can we do between now and when the cleaning crew arrive because they weren't actually on the ground that we were standing at the gate when our inbound aircraft arrived. So there wasn't a whole heap of time on the ground. Okay. I was just impressed with that airline all around.
And last question about ANA. Have you been able to fly any of the Star Wars plane?
No, sadly not. The one, I have a model of it on my desk right here, the R2-D2 Dreamliner flies to Paris, but it does not fly to London yet. I don't think they have any plans to either. And then there's a 777, which I believe is used on domestic routes. I didn't even see any, I don't think.
I think it's a 767 in domestic, but I'm not sure. Maybe you're right, because I know they have 2 international and maybe even 2 domestic. I'm not sure. They've increased these the numbers. I've never flown them. You remember actually in January 2016, again, I was supposed to fly back to Paris because I thought I would grab it. And then I realized it had already left the airport. Thus, I reverted back to the 777 to London, which is higher capacity. So I guess that's why they fly them to London.
Yeah, still. I'd love to one day.
Well, we have other chances to go to Japan,
Yeah, I'm always looking for excuses.
And keep that partnership as long as you can with ANA, so maybe they can actually do something for you. Interestingly, when I was looking for my flights to go to Japan, I was looking at BA as well to fly to Haneda, and it said when I was about not to book, but you go further into the bookings to see a little bit of the seat map, etc. It says we are in the process of securing Japanese government approval for BA 4608 and BA 4609, which is basically London, Haneda, Heathrow. If these are not granted in time for your flight, we will notify you and issue a full refund. I was like, would I actually try to book a flight. And then, oops, sorry guys, we didn't get the landing rights, thus we're refunding, which is fine, but I still don't have a flight, which is why I didn't take them.
I think they're, from my limited understanding of starting new routes, I think they're legally obligated to put that message as a CYA, as it were. The chances of them not getting approval for it and putting it out for sale are pretty slim.
For me, I would have expected, that they would not put it for sale until they would actually get the full, approval. But yeah, probably you're right. The risk was limited. Anyway, I wanted to land in Narita. I know that's very strange, guys. So Haneda has been in the past.
Yeah, everybody, all of our friends in Japan were like, why did he do that?
Because for me, when I was living there, landing in Japan from abroad, besides maybe China or South Korea, was clearly Narita. There was no other way. The move to Haneda hadn't really started. So I have this kind of weird, stupid, symbolism, and I wanted to do it because I like landing, taking my train, having a little sandwich in my train to central Tokyo, and I just did that. So I ended up flying Cathay Pacific. It was I found a very good deal. Heathrow, Narita via, of course, Hong Kong, and as I hinted at earlier, what a pleasure it is to transfer at Hong Kong. It's so easy and just works. It just works. Oh my God. So I did that. That was a pretty fantastic flight, and I was able, because you mentioned it so many times to me, I was able to try the Cathay Pacific lounge, the first class lounge at Heathrow Terminal 3.
Ah, yes.
What a nice lounge.
Yes.
What a nice lounge. Yeah, it is a pretty... Has it been renovated recently?
Yes, about a year ago.
Yeah, I can see that. It was, wow, blissful. I loved it.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's small, but you got a little restaurant area, and they've of course got the great views and the comfy seats where you can just sit out and
very comfy actually.
Watch the world go by, and then of course you can go next door to the business class lounge and get some wonderful noodles. But yeah, that's a great lounge.
I've actually done that. I went for the noodles, even though it was early in the morning. I said, "Oh, what the heck?
Yeah,
it's not early in the morning in Hong Kong or Japan."
Yeah.
The funny thing is that I arrived to the lounge, and you're welcomed by the staff there, and she tells me, because she realizes probably she has something on my phone, she says, "Oh, the Wi-Fi password will remember you." That's how she said it, which, by the way, is a very good thing that some of these airlines, I know BA does the same. We have a single password with a single sign-on system for all their lounges around the world.
Yeah, it is clever, and they put it in the app, then you can access it offline. It's a good idea.
So I flew the 777. It was very nice. On the way back, I flew from Haneda this time. I said, okay, it was closer. We flew actually the same day, but you flew in the morning and I flew in the afternoon. My flight, of course, was slightly longer because I had a layover in Hong Kong. This time a slightly longer layover, so I could actually spend some time at the pier, which was, and I went straight into the pier. I sat there for maybe 2.5 hours, and then only I realized that one of my good friends, Joy Ito, was actually at the bridge.
Oh, you're kidding!
All that time he was on Foursquare on Swarm, and I hadn't realized it. And of course, by the time I realized it, he had already left Hong Kong airport. I was like, so much automated, I'm going to walk to the pier. There's no other option.
What were the planes that got you from Hong Kong to Tokyo and back? Were they 330s?
No, they were 777s as well. Yep, they were 777s on both legs. Similar seat, the one that is lie flat. So really no difference whatsoever. Probably slightly older. But when I say older, it's really funny because you go on their website and what is the new business class, which is the seat we always talk about. It is only 7-year-old or something. It's not that old, actually.
Not at all.
Right?
Not at all, and it's a very good seat. So what I think they've tried to make some modifications with the seat on the A350, and they've been let down.
Yeah, which I'm going to come to because I wanted to fly back to Gatwick and not Heathrow because it was a very early arrival, 5:30 a.m. Excuse me.
Wow.
There's less traffic and commute, especially in the train. We take the train to central London from Gatwick to central London. Whereas when I land at those times, it has arrived many times for me to Heathrow, both the Piccadilly, of course, the Heathrow Express, which I always avoid, and clearly the road is completely backed up. So that's why I wanted to fly to Gatwick, and thus I had the 350. And let down is the word. I mean, no, I was not let down. Come on. It's very similar seats. Same manufacturer, Zodiac. They had many problems, and it shows. The seat, the 350s are not old planes. The seat was literally already falling apart. You can see that they had to put like some adhesive to kind of retain some of the fixtures.
That's bad.
I mean, here I'm not complaining about Cathay Pacific because all the rest of the experiences, this is why I love to fly them, was really good. But they must be pissed.
Yeah, well, they've said it out loud that they are. And they're frustrated. And I think they're not the only airline that's run into this as well with the Zodiacs.
It's really, I mean, the rest, the IFE is better because it's more modern and more responsive. The screen, I think, is the same size, slightly bigger than the 777. So everything is, you can see that the plan is great. It's just that the execution, maybe because Zodiac was, didn't have any capacity to build that many scenes and they cut corners. You can see the results of cutting corners. And it's a bit sad because they probably, of course, fix that. And, Cathay Pacific will either refurbish for free or something. But it must be really disappointing.
Infuriating because that's your sort of newest airplane in the fleet and people expect it to have the best seat.
Anyway, I repeat that every single episode. I'm tall, 6'5", 196 centimeters. I usually test the limit of the seats. I was lucky because I chose to fly on two legs with a 350 and one of the long 777 with the bulkhead. And I will say the bulkhead is better because there's more room for your legs, especially there's more clearance, as in if you have, also have very large feet. I'm 46, which is 12. So there's actually more clearance. So guys, if you're tall like me, who have big feet, use the bulkhead. But the one thing that I will say, and maybe some people can either correct me or agree or disagree with me, it seems that the 350 seat is slightly larger than the 777. It's not as long, but it's slightly seems I have more space on the side.
Oh, that's
Guys,
interesting.
If you've flown it and if you found that, please let me know if you agree with me. One thing, Alex, so coming back to Japan, Haneda. How was your experience at Haneda departing internationally with ANA?
Yeah, it was fine. Pretty seamless. We had access to one of the lounges, but didn't spend too much time in there. It's it was fine.
Is there a specific access for directly to the lounge to the gate or something? No, right?
No. There's actually two lounges that we could have access. And actually, when we checked in, the agent recommended that we go to one over the other because one gets very busy and the other doesn't, but it's just as good. And she was absolutely right.
Yeah, I think I've done it. Did you visit? I don't know if we've mentioned it. International terminal. There's an observation deck. You can go on top and actually see planes. Have you?
No, we didn't. We didn't go there. We were. I don't know why we felt so rushed, but even though we had a couple of hours, we wanted to eat. I don't think we had any more filming to do, but for some reason we didn't have a lot of time.
So, guys, if you are slightly ahead of time, go on the top. You have great views of the aprons, which, by the way, some of these views you can have for some of the lounges if you're lucky enough to have access to a lounge like I did in the Cathay Pacific Lounge. Pretty new as well at the International is really good. There's also, just before you reach this observation deck, you have flight simulators, but not for kids, actual flight simulators that you and me, they were full. There were people queuing for them, which is why I couldn't try them. But this is really cool.
I had no idea how I missed all this stuff.
And one thing that I really appreciated on the observation desk, and a lot of geeks will love that, is that you have touch screens. Probably they're also waterproof because it's literally outside, and you can learn about the airport, obviously history. There's both in English and in Japanese, I think maybe as well in Chinese, and probably maybe in Korean as well. And you can actually click on different tales and learn about each airline that you might see in front of you. They even have all the specs about the different aircraft, 777s, etc. So this is really cool. Well done.
I'm so annoyed that I missed that.
I thought, let's just check it out. And I ended up spending 45 minutes there until it started raining. And I said, okay, let's just go to my lounge. Kudos, other airports should do that kind of stuff. It's really nifty. So my adventure then, that's very Japanese. I'm going to try not to be too harsh here. So Did you use any type of fast track at Haneda for security?
The queue for the fast track was longer than the queue for the normal line. So I believe we had access, but we chose not to use it. And we just went straight through security, and it was fast.
So there's two sides. You can go, I think, I don't remember if it's called north and south, but you can choose. It's actually very well done. You have signs telling you where there's most busy. I was in a very non-busy time, 4 p.m. or something. My flight was, I think, so probably was 2 p.m. and it was really quiet. And walking there, the first thing that's in front of me is fast track, and you cannot miss the fast track because there's like a carpet, a red carpet, and it's really like showing your. There's this huge sign which has all the airlines that are accepted and all the cards, and they are printouts of each and every single card, right?
And the times.
So I'm flying Cathay Pacific in business class, and I'm Emerald, so I'm BA Gold, so Emerald on Oneworld, right? So I arrive there just because it's in front of me, and again, I don't care of not having fast track, because at that point of time, it didn't change anything. It was the first thing I saw. So let's use fast track, whatever. And so I show my ticket to the lady there, and she tells me, "No, you don't have access to fast track." And I look at her and said, "But it says here Cathay Pacific." And she says, "Yes, but Cathay Pacific Marco Polo." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm BA Gold." She says, "Yeah, and the BA Gold card is clearly laid out." But she says, "Yeah, but that's under BA. So it's the gold card for BA if you fly BA." But I'm like, so bronze card for BA can get fast track if they fly in BA, but gold card on BA if you fly any other airline, which for me was Cathay, is not allowed. He's like, "No, you're not allowed." I'm like, what is that system?
That doesn't make any sense. That sounds like she made a mistake.
No, again, this is why I don't want to be harsh, and I literally didn't care. I'm not like this kind of, I belong here. So I kind of, well, okay, whatever. And I just went to the other line. But I mean, that was very strange.
That's strange. And I think when you have, because I saw that sign, I know exactly what sign you're talking about. And it is extraordinary how big it is and how complicated it is, but that seems quite common in Japan to have a very
explanations.
This layout. Like when I was researching some stuff for the whatever collective you want to use for the Suica and the Pasmo and the Ikoka all over Japan, their interoperability, the diagram is
huge,
just huge and complicated. And all of that, so that is funny though.
But that explains why you got all these all these papers again. We come back to what you said earlier. It's probably because they want to have everything explained to you. What's the gate? What's your seat? What's you? By the way, the one thing I didn't mention earlier when we talked about that, the one thing I really appreciate about Japanese boarding passes is that they fit very neatly into your passport.
Yeah, everything is the right size, which is totally what one would expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so that not a big deal, but guys know that maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was again a policy that is badly designed. I don't know, but that's really funny because I know that a lot of people who are frequent flyer and much more asses than we are would have been infuriated. I'm like, I laughed it off and I said, okay, whatever. But one last thing, I land in Gatwick, of course, late. When we were in Hong Kong, we boarded pretty much on time. The captain comes on the PA, says, well, they're making works on the runway in Gatwick. They're not allowing anyone landing before 6 a.m., so we have to wait. So we had to wait 45 minutes. It's fine because if you wait,
Were you boarded, though?
Yeah, boarded and seated. So that's fine. That's what I'm saying. It's you wait in the plane at the gate in Hong Kong. The IFE was working already, although I would have had my iPad, so it's fine. But it's interesting. We arrive at Gatwick, I think the second flight that landed that day, so the airport is empty. And for any one of you who ever will arrive at Gatwick, terminal Cathay Pacific, is it the south or north? I think it's south.
Yeah, I think you're right.
When you arrive from the gates, it's a pretty long walk from all the gates to where for border control for the UK border. Then the luggage is pretty close. But then there's a funny bit where there's a big square and you have a ramp that goes all around the building and people just go down and down and down and down because the sign says that's the way to immigration. Yeah. Right in front of you guys, there's a set of stairs that cuts through all this. It gets you down in about 80% less of the time that nobody takes because the sign doesn't say it is. So guys, because you're smart, like Alex is as well. Just use those stairs when you arrive at Gatwick. You'll see.
It's the most bizarre thing.
Everybody takes the ramp.
Yeah, and we discovered this. I can't remember where we were coming back from. It was my wife and my sons, and we were like, why don't we just go this way? And I thought, oh, well, we're probably going to end up somewhere where we shouldn't be.
But no, you arrive right. I believe, I might be wrong. I believe, because maybe the sign was different back then. You remember we said at some point, like maybe almost a year and a half ago, that they realized that people were complaining of waiting for too long for the luggage. Maybe on purpose.
Artificially. That's interesting.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, result is still, of course, my luggage. My luggage was fast track, priority, whatever. I pass the passport e-gate, which works very well at Gatwick. I arrive at the bell. The bell starts working literally 5 seconds after I arrive. My luggage is number 2. That was the swiftest ever experience I had.
That's Gatwick, a lovely thing.
Gatwick can be super cool when it's automation. When it actually works, it's really, really nice.
Yeah, I like Gatwick.
So since we are Gatwick, you said actually that we should do that. I mentioned Gatwick in the last episode. Monarch, that big bankruptcy. What happened there?
Well, from what I understand, they have been circling the toilet, as it were, for a very, very long time. I mean, we're talking maybe a decade, and it's just been a really difficult situation for them. And then in maybe 18 months ago, the rumor mill started going into overdrive that they were really struggling, and it wasn't a day-by-day thing. And then on the 2nd of October of this year, they entered into what's called administration in the UK, but essentially bankruptcy protection, and stopped flying immediately, which is quite unusual. A lot of airlines like Air Berlin kept flying for several weeks, if not months after they go into bankruptcy protection. It was almost overnight. Doing so, they stranded 110,000 passengers abroad. And we covered this in previous episodes. It was the biggest civilian repatriation since the Berlin airlift, I think is what it was compared like that, to. So it's really, really rather extraordinary. But it was an increasingly difficult competitive environment, pressure from a bunch of other, basically BA. Huge increases in capacity for low-cost carriers. I mean, EasyJet have felt this as well, but they're big enough to really feel this. A massive drop in travel to Egypt and North Africa in general after some fairly high profile.
Tunisia, Sharm el-Sheikh, all these places.
High profile terrorism attacks. And all of that was enough to really just break the back of the airline. And very quickly It was
a pretty big airline. I think it was the 5th biggest airline in the UK or something.
Yeah, they had about 35 airplanes. And, in 2014, they had 125 million pounds of new capital.
Yeah, but from whom?
Grable, who were this company that bought them. They're a turnaround specialist, and they made all this money available to them, but even they couldn't.
Because there was this thing. I don't have it in front of me. There was this story that Boeing, through a subsidiary, actually kind of helped them. They gave them a subsidy, which by the way flies in the face of Boeing saying we hate subsidies. But I mean, that's another story. But
so that 165 million in funding, which was required by Atoll to keep its license, the majority of that came via Boeing. I'm sure that now that we know this happened, it's not unprecedented, but I'd certainly never heard of that. And I wonder, I mean, they didn't fly exclusively Boeing airplanes. They only flew one Boeing airplane.
I think there was at some point a plan to
they had
buy
ordered
Boeing.
45.
Exactly. That's the thing.
737 MAX 8. So
that's the thing.
I think that was probably against that order that money came through. But the demise has been blamed on a bunch of stuff, like terrorism, like we talked about, a massive increase in capacity and low cost, and then, of course, Brexit.
That doesn't help either. Brexit is more like an anticipatory event because it hasn't actually happened yet, but it's not a perfect storm, but a pretty good storm, actually, that happened to, which is, like you said, a lot of people were stranded, and because... and I think I mentioned twice already in this show. Sorry, guys, because I'm getting old, so I keep starting repeating myself. There were so many planes I could see at Gatwick. When I was waiting I think it was when I was going to Tirana, again that BA lounge. As views on the apron, I was like, "What is that aircraft? I've never seen that. What is that other aircraft?" There were like these charter airlines that I had never heard about, Titan Airways and others, which actually specialize in either, very quick routes for charter holidays or for that kind of events.
Yes.
And it's insane the number of those that I'd never had seen.
Yeah,
before.
I think we touched on Titan briefly.
Yeah.
They're the ones
Yeah.
that could get a plane ready in under an hour.
Something like that.
Really rather extraordinary.
I think it's funded by the taxpayer, which is fine, by the way, but I think it's the atoll protection, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And the CAA were the ones that were coordinating everything. To their credit, they did a phenomenal job.
So do you think that's the reason why we're seeing this increase in the tax for passengers, the ADP, the airport departures?
It's opportunism.
I said so. Yeah, we're sorry, very UK based here for the last few minutes, guys. This is a tax that you pay. I know that Alex railed against it like probably 20 episodes ago. It's a tax that we have to pay as UK whenever you fly out from the UK, basically. Not when you are transiting, when you actually fly out from the UK. And the tax is dependent if you fly economy, business, or first, and short haul or long haul. There's distances, etc. And there's a new budget that was announced. We are experiencing a soon to happen Brexit. And I don't have anything to say about Brexit itself, but supposedly Britain is open for business. We have to be super competitive. And then you raise taxes on flights. I mean, how does that make even sense?
It doesn't. It's completely ridiculous. And the reasons and rationale that's put forward for its existence is nonsense. It was supposed to do to offset the environmental impact of air travel, but it doesn't take into account the efficiency of the airplane. So airlines using old, inefficient airplanes are taxed at the same level that a Dreamliner or an A350 is taxed, or a 747-400 and a prop plane. It doesn't make any sense, and actually, it's been interesting to watch because in 2011, Continental threatened to stop flying from Belfast to Newark unless APD was dropped. So there is no APD from Northern Ireland to a certain band of destinations. Yeah, the whole thing is just insane.
To be fair to our Ministry of, what's his name? Hammond.
Chancellor of the Exchequer, yeah.
To be fair, the tax will not be moved for short haul economy, so it will not touch like people that fly low cost, which are tourists, which are what they say, obviously what they assume are families and regular people. Again, not business people and people like us. Long haul will increase, short haul will not, and especially the biggest increase, of course, premium cabin, which will increase twice. Will increase once next April and again another time in April 2019. Not a lot of people do what we sometimes do, Alex, which is, we're going to fly somewhere to catch another flight. But when you see that the price for long haul premium, so again, premium cabin, which by the way includes premium economy, right? So premium economy is considered as something premium, is 150 British pounds. With 150 British pounds, you can go to Amsterdam, Paris, Oslo with a low cost and then grab another aircraft. Not a lot of people would do that, but at some point it makes economical sense just to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the frustrating thing is that Scotland have committed to abolishing it eventually. They're reducing it by 50% very soon, and they're going to abolish it as soon as it makes financial sense. And Northern Ireland are reviewing it as well. But in 2013, PwC did this huge study saying if you abolish APD, you will get a massive shot in the arm for the British economy. And all these numbers are really rather impressive, but hasn't happened.
Kind of required with Brexit. And again, I'm not making a stance on Brexit here because every time we make a political stance, I have people actually flaming us. But, we want to be competitive. You should be. Anyway, enough about that. But still on Brexit, I just said I'm not going to do politics, but still ownership, because we forgot to mention that the other time when we talked about ownership rule. You remember Air Berlin, we talked about the US, etc. So the ownership rule. There's a big problem here for the UK, obviously, is that IAG, which is the parent company of BA, Welling, Iberia, will, the day of Brexit, let me start a little bit ahead here. in order to be qualified and to have flying rights in the EU, you have to be EU-owned airline. So you have to be 51%, I think if it's 51% by EU shareholders, which currently is the case of IAG, thus BA, Iberia, etc. The day the UK exits, and that happens in March 2019, I think, or something, the day the UK exits the EU, all the shareholders that are based in the UK are requalified as non-EU shareholders. And so that can flip the number. And so suddenly IAG finds itself into a vast majority of its shareholders not being in the EU, loses all its landing rights in the EU, including for Iberia, by the way. It will also happen to EasyJet, but EasyJet already has made plans.
They've been preemptive.
They will have actually a shareholder split of 51-49, so they'll be actually correct. But imagine for IAG and Ryanair, so O'Leary, again, always very vocal, says that BA is in complete denial about that problem, and they say, we're going to find a deal. But I mean, this is big.
It is
because
big.
If BA loses its landing rights in the EU, that's a huge blow.
Yeah. I think they'll probably find a deal because the collective economic impact across the EU would be pretty substantial. But to say it'll be fine is not a strategy.
Oh, and O'Leary's own Ryanair will be at only 38% EU, so it will have to increase. And O'Leary basically said, well, you know what? You may be forced to sell shares or be disenfranchised because I have no choice but to make the airline EU compliant. So, wow.
And there's going to be so many of these both within and without of the airline industry.
Yeah.
Where people haven't thought about shareholdering and rights and shipping and customs and all that stuff. But I'm glad I don't have to solve that problem.
So BA did a massive investment. I mean, promised Alex Cruz after the big, of course, the IT disaster we talked about, after I've been being crucified in the press and BA, anything but BA, ABBA. There's even a video. One of our listeners actually sent me the video. I'm sorry, I don't have your name in front of me. I promise you a shout out next time of him doing a speech about what BA will become. They're making a $6 billion investment to overhaul the company. They want to become more premium again. So everything they apparently lost, they said, we're going to go. So they're going back apparently to become premium. They're promising, of course, a new first class they had promised in the Dreamliners that are upcoming, new aircraft to be bought, Wi-Fi, which, by the way, I think only a single flight has Wi-Fi. They bring it back the second meal for economies. They on long haul, they said that the second meal wouldn't exist. Now they are bringing it back. Do you think it's going to be enough?
I don't know. I mean, I've in the last 6 months, I've been exposed to a lot more airlines and their economy and premium products, and it makes me realize how much BA has to do to catch up. But $6 billion, I don't really know where that's going to be invested or how it's going to be invested, and how much of that is new airplanes and passenger experience. But what they say seems to be different from what they do. So the shift in how the boarding process is a reflection on that, I think. And then we were talking about this just before we hit the record button, that they are closing OpenSkies, their all business class carrier from Paris to Newark.
To replace it with
Level, their low cost carrier.
So that's not a premium move.
No, it's not. And that kind of proves my point a little bit, that it's fine to say we're investing all this money in we want to be premium again, but their actions to date have not illustrated that. I haven't experienced the new business class food that they've been talking about, so I don't know how, and I have no long haul plans with them anyway for a while, so I don't know, but the proof will be in the pudding, and there's no pudding yet.
I love how when they announced, they didn't announce that they're closing OpenSkies. That's very, on the PR way, it's actually clever, because they announced, so they wanted to open another hub for Level. This is a long-haul, low-cost airline they've set up, guys. If you haven't, a few episodes back, we talked about it. And they said, we want to open a second hub in Europe. And the competition was between Rome and Paris, and they decided on Paris. So the whole announcement is about, we decided to open in Paris. And then in a very small lettering, they say, and it's going to replace OpenSkies.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
It was a little cheeky. I mean, OpenSkies was popular, and I think it spawned a couple of other imitators one of
company,
which still exist, which is great. And so again, we'll have to see how this actually turns out and what that 6 billion turns into. But I have yet to be convinced personally.
And again, guys, we know, we live both in London, so we are very heavily, we see that airline very heavily. Thus, we talk a little bit more about it. We try to avoid not to talk about it in every single episode, which is why I waited for this news for this one.
Yeah, I have 6 flights in the next 2 weeks with them, so we'll see how that goes.
All European, right?
Yes.
And both Club Europe, it's called, and coach, or mostly?
Yeah, mixed bag.
I mean, you'll talked about it. I mean, I've done quite a few. I don't always mention them because they're less interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes the destination airport can be, but and you just said Luxembourg. I had been to Luxembourg now a year and a half ago. We'll do an episode about that airport and how that was, because it's interesting. I took Lux Air myself when I went there, so let's do that. One
nice.
of these. So OpenSkies was leaving from Paris. I had been to Paris. I mentioned that as well again in an early episode. I landed in Orly, which is the second in the south, and took off from Charles de Gaulle because it had better times. I know, guys, I could take the Eurostar. It was a very last-minute flight, and when you do last-minute travel, Eurostar can be super expensive. It was also midterm, so the holidays, so it was actually expensive, so it was better. And, I love flying. Why not? So Charles de Gaulle, I arrive with an Uber, arrive at the airport, and I start moving into Terminal 2A, where British Airways flies from. And I start traveling there, and suddenly I see a massive amount of police and say, please evacuate the terminal, please evacuate the terminal. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And I hear there's, the usual abandoned luggage. So they had to, of course, physically remove the people. And I was on my way to security. So a little trick, guys, if it ever happens to you in Paris, if you are in 2A or vice versa in 2C, you can actually walk out and join the other terminal. The security is shared for most of the gates. So what I did, most people were standing and waited. I cheekily went outside, walked for like 5 minutes, entered to C, which is the neighboring terminal, which had no bomb scare, went to security, which was shared, which would have been the same as 2A, and actually was in the lounge, which I chose because I had many choices. I chose the Cathay Pacific Lounge in Paris.
How was that?
It is very, very, very good. There's a small noodle. It's not a full restaurant, but there's a small also noodle bar. You can order noodles from. The views again are great. You can see landings and takeoffs and a few aircrafts. Cathay is really good at maintaining a similar kind of feel over all their lounges.
Yes, they are. I think they've made a concerted effort to do that. And I think they've got those flagship lounges in Hong Kong, and they've built everything around there for just the brand consistency and the differentiation, which is a sensible strategy.
One thing that is always bad at Charles de Gaulle, and I know we've never done that airport yet, because the day we're going to do it, we're going to bash it. So we have to be very careful. The boards are rarely updated. So when you have a flight that is delayed, it just says delayed, but you have no idea of the time. There's no expectations. So it was really funny to be in front of the gate at probably, I think it was a 1:35 p.m. flight, and you could clearly see that the inbound flight hadn't even arrived, and they were like boarding in 15 minutes. Like, guys, anyway, you know what happened actually? So then the flight arrived, slightly delayed, but it's very short flight to London. But the crew, and that tells you a lot about Charles de Gaulle. We were late because the replacement crew, was backed up on the highway that leads to Charles de Gaulle. They couldn't make it on time.
That flipping airport, and there's literally no good way
to go to there. Yeah. No, there is. You don't have to be afraid, and you have to have large luggages, a motorcycle. You have guys that take you go in the back, and if you have a carry-on, they will actually struggle to carry on. They are official, right? They're not just guys in the street. They can, of course, overtake traffic. I've done it once. It's quite an experience. These guys go fast, and you're in the open air. Of course, you have a helmet, but this is the fastest way.
Yeah, I've always been a huge fan of Virgin limo bikes, or I think they're called limo bikes now, that do something similar, but probably not at the scale that did. That's the way. If you need to get from point A to point B. I didn't even know they had that in Paris. That's cool.
Motocab, I don't remember the name. I'll find out one day we'll redo Charles de Gaulle, but you can just look it up. It's a very good way to go there. As always, we had a lot of people, connecting with us, putting us reviews. Thank you guys for your iTunes reviews or Facebook reviews. Always very much appreciated. We had a few, and I'm going to mention 2 in a row, a few nice comments. First was from Stuart B at Brookie Boy on Twitter. He sent us an interesting article from Forbes. So, Forbes is like the HuffPost. Pretty much anyone can actually write at Forbes. It's not what it used to be when you had to be qualified journalist to write there. Not to diss the author of the article, which is not Brookie Boy, by the way. Just sent us the article. But it's interesting to see the other side, because in the last episode we mentioned that how clever Airbus had been in buying Bombardier CS series.
Yes.
This article takes the other side and says, you know what? Actually, they effed up, and Boeing is not furious. Boeing is smirking because they know that the Bombardier factory in Alabama will take a long time to get in place, which means that until it actually gets in place, there's not going to be non-tariff. So Delta will have to wait for it. It's aircrafts that when they open the factory in Alabama, they will have to shift jobs from Canada to the US. But Canada, just having subsidized Bombardier in Canada, wouldn't want to lose jobs. Thus, will be a conundrum.
Yeah.
And also at the same time that Airbus is still waiting on its, the big fight they have at the World Trade Organization. That's where the author goes into a little bit of you can see it's, and Brookie Boy says as much, it could be propaganda, which says, well, you know what, Airbus is going to lose at the WTO, so there's only problems coming after them with the 380 as well, arriving at a dead end, so Boeing can smirk.
This situation is just the most frustrating thing because it's completely manufactured. That's what kills me. It's a complicated subject. I think the article does a good job of summarizing it, in a slightly convoluted manner. But yeah, the whole situation just makes me angry. And I was biting my tongue while you were saying that, because we could be here for the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't want our listeners to feel that we always we do take sides because we have our opinion, but we see that there are other sides to the problem, and it's not always as simple or something.
No, again, and I think that's why this article is important, because it's not a black and white issue. There's 3 countries involved at the very least, and a lot of money, plus 2, whether they say they are or not, subsidized, national companies or multinational in Airbus's cases. It's complicated. And you're right, it's nuanced, and it's not black and white by any stretch of the imagination.
It's not gold, and that's our friend Nick Donnelly on Twitter, at Nick Donnelly.
We haven't heard from Nick in a while, and he came out with this gem the other day.
Called us out. I never had you guys down as Trump fans because we supposedly like gold. Maybe he has a point. Not that we're Trump fans, I don't think we are, but about the gold, because Trump is very much into gold. That Emirates First and New Emirates First is still too heavily into gold. Out of the pictures, I don't see it as much, but I haven't seen the products.
I haven't seen it in person, and from the pictures, I can say it's less gold than the existing first class. But that was one of the reasons why I liked the new one, actually.
Me too.
Because it was less gold and wood veneer.
Me too. Nick says marginal improvement from before, but still it's horrific. I mean, you know what?
He's a man who doesn't mince his words. That's for sure. That's why I like it when he gets in touch.
Me too. I love him. Anyway, so because you've done it now, how was your Emirates First, which is not a new product, but you've done finally Emirates First. How was the shower? How was Telos?
It was great. It was very impressive. It lived up to expectations entirely.
Nice.
I didn't have much time at all in the first lounge at Dubai, which I regret, because I wanted to.
Can you remember which one? Was it Concourse A or B?
I'm glad you brought that up. The reason I didn't have much time is because my flight was at 9:40 and I was coming from Sharjah, which is where everybody who works in Dubai lives. So the traffic was horrendous. It took hours. Well, not hours. It took an hour when it should have taken about 25 minutes. I went into the A wing lounge, and when I checked in, she said, okay, well, you're actually boarding from the B gates. But I would stay here if I was you. It only takes about 15 minutes to get over there.
The A1 is the latest one. It's the better one for me.
That's what this lady said. She said, they're both amazing, but you're here. You might as well enjoy it. So I had a nice meal there. But the onboard experience itself is extraordinary. I had a very nice Swiss flight attendant who was looking after me. I was in 1A.
Hold on. You told me she was from Geneva. So I am from Geneva. I never had someone from Geneva at any flight whatsoever in the world, besides, of course, Swiss going to Geneva. So I'm very jealous just for that.
It was funny because not only there was that coincidence, but she also was from the town that we always stay in, on the French side of Geneva whenever we go there, which is a small town in Ferney-Voltaire.
Ferney-Voltaire. Yeah, well, sure.
which was neat. But they come along and they offer you a glass of champagne, and it's 2006 Dom Perignon, and then they've got the little. There's the big entertainment bar area at the back of the plane, which is for anybody in a premium cabin. But at the front, just in front of the stairs down to the lower deck, there's this self-service bar with, again, the Dom Perignon, but then the most extraordinary wines and
cognac,
whiskeys and cognac.
That's NSC, XO, and all these.
VSOP,
whatever.
21-year-old blended Scotch whiskeys
and also nifty, very good sandwiches. I know that it's not as fancy, but I like the little sandwiches that they put there. Are very good, actually.
Yeah,
I always gain weight when I fly first.
Oh, I mean, I wanted to try everything. The wine, like a 17-year-old bottle of French wines, which I tried, and the food was outstanding. It was, presented in a restaurant style folio menu. You pick what you want to eat and when you want to eat it, and it was beautifully presented. And the screen, of course, is absolutely huge, absolutely huge. And you've got this automated. I'm making a little mini attaché video when I finally get some time to edit it, but a little mini bar that pops out of your seat, motorized, of course.
The one thing, though, I mean, it's not here to criticize, but that, when I did probably 2012 or something anyway. So, and, I was so excited the first time, like probably you still are, that I didn't realize that these drinks are not refrigerated.
No, that's true.
Which is fine, by the way, because it's water. There's one, I think, was kind of Coke, one kind of Sprite. There's a bottle, there's a Perrier, and I forgot.
There's
two
an
others.
Evian, Perrier, a couple of bottles of Pepsi, which I didn't go anywhere near, and like a cranberry juice or something. And then you have a lovely little snack basket as well, don't you? And then a makeup mirror with all these cosmetics, and of course the amenity kit is outstanding.
And the pad, there's a little drawer when you have the writing pad.
I meant to take that. Damn it, I forgot.
I've actually never used the cosmetics that are there, because they give you this amenity kit, which is already very good and extraordinary. And there's actually so much more, and we'll get there probably with you in a minute in the shower. No, I'm not gonna go physically with you in the shower. Don't worry. But there's already so much good things in the amenity kit. Plus, there is a lot of stuff in the lavatory, which is more than a lavatory at that point. Which means that the cosmetics that is under that mirror, I've never touched them. Not that I use cosmetics a lot, but I've never even thought about using those.
Yeah, I didn't even break the seal, as it were, on any of that. It just stayed there. I think perhaps if I was of the fairer sex, I would.
Maybe.
But I don't, like you say, I don't wear makeup or cosmetics very often. But yeah, in the bathroom, which without exaggeration is bigger than the bathroom in my house, you have all of these cosmetics and accessories and things like that, and of course the shower. Which
did you take one then?
Yeah, I didn't even need one, but I felt I had to
exactly
for science. And it was a hot, powerful shower that lasted longer than I needed it to.
Yeah, I never went to this is 12 minutes of water, but that's water, meaning you see every time the water stops, so you don't have to keep it running. And I never actually did. Why would I stay 2 hours there? I mean, I don't know. It's just the floor is actually heated.
Yes, I did enjoy that. You get 25 minutes in the bathroom. They block it off for 25 minutes, and the TV and that you can watch the TV and just everything.
In the lavatory. Yeah, in the lavatory, there's the moving map, and of course,
it was just so impressive. The whole experience. The bed, of course, was just exquisite and comfortable. And
how was the food?
Amazing. Yeah, I started with caviar just because it was there. And
exactly.
It was recommended to me by the cabin crew who was looking after me, and just everything attentive, wonderful, really, really good. I worked the whole flight. because I had internet, so I got a lot of work done as well, which.
So on Emirates, business and first do not pay for the internet.
Right, you get unlimited.
Unlimited, which of course then depends on which country. So some countries are blocked out. I think China and India, you cannot have internet when you fly over those. Maybe a few others I don't remember. And the rest, it depends. Sometimes the quality is not as good depending on where you are.
Yeah, and that's fine.
It's fine. I'm not criticizing. We're saying it's an expectation because I guess when you fly domestic in the US, not yet, but soon enough, domestic in Europe, you can expect to have a pretty good internet all throughout.
Yes.
There's some parts you're going over either oceans or you're going over, some countries that might not have the infrastructure yet, and they don't use satellites, I think, yet. And of course, you also 380, which you have to share the connectivity
and they're
with
good
a lot
at
of other
indicating
people.
The saturation of the signal as well.
Yes, they are.
But
since you don't pay, you don't realize. By the way, it reminds me that because it has happened to me recently, I think it was on a Cathay Pacific flight, then I would advise anyone that does that, because I was so stupid, especially when you pay, because when you don't pay, you don't really care, to kill all the background activities on your phone, which is very easily done on an iPhone. I'm pretty sure it's easily done on Android. On Mac, I've installed something called Trip Mode, which also can kill other background activities, because literally, I think it was Cathay Pacific. I had about 20 mega, and it literally lasted for about 30 seconds because suddenly all iCloud and everything started going in the background and used all my stuff. So.
Yeah, that's always a pain as well, especially if you're on one of the limited plans, and that's it. They're like, you turn on your computer, ding, that's it, all used up.
But the onboarding of logging to Wi-Fi is very good. I found
it's very easy, especially if you are a Emirates Skywards member.
Oh yeah, true. I forgot about that. Yeah, of course. If you are Gold, you also do not pay for internet.
Yeah, I think if you're just a member, because I was a Blue member and I got it for
but you went first.
No, even first. on my business class flights. Yeah,
but I think business and first do not pay anyway. I'm not sure, guys, but anyway, it's good to be I think it's clever from them to ask you to become a member, because then of course they onboard you. So I know, because I've heard a lot of friends of mine who say Emirates, the internet doesn't always work. Yeah, because again, it's not always throughout, but I think overall it's one of the good experience for long haul flights that I had. Yeah, it's a solid.
I was impressed.
Yeah. And how was the chauffeur drive?
Really impressive. I think very different in the UK compared to Dubai. In Dubai, it's just an extraordinary scale at which they do it.
Yeah,
but it was very
industrial.
efficient.
Yeah, it's industrial.
Is the right word. The right word. But they were on time, all four legs, and I was. Kudos to LA, to Heathrow, and to Emirates. When I landed at Heathrow, I think I sent you a message that from wheels down to driving out of Terminal 3 was like 22 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And that was even with my passport failing on the e-gate. Yeah. So that's pretty amazing.
How was the immigration at Dubai for you?
Very easy, because they give you the fast track, and although it wasn't really necessary, because we seemed to arrive at a reasonably quiet period in the day.
Okay.
It took no time at all.
Okay, good. I think, pretty sure I'm going to Dubai again once time this year.
Oh, wow. I'm back there in February, and I look forward to it. I'm flying on Emirates.
Yeah, I should be flying Emirates if I end up going, because it's still up in the air. I might also go to Abu Dhabi with Etihad the week before. It's a bit crazy to do that at the end of the year, but I might have no choice. We'll see if I go forward. But yeah, the Dubai can be sometimes very busy, and no matter if you have fast track, it can be actually busy. The ideal scenario would have to have your Skywards cards linked with your passport, and then you just swipe it. The problem is I was never able, I think I've said it again many times, I was never able to register my passport on my card. But that would be the most fantastic way to get in, because then you get to a gate and you just don't talk to anyone. It's just in the country.
That would be the nice way to do it. And that's the same at any airport, though.
So one last thing, I know we're running back again, since we don't know where we're going to record next, because we have a few flights coming up. I'm going to New York, and then again, like I just said, these other flights, we're going to give you a little bit of extra content. We're recording today on Tuesday, November 28th. But this show won't be in the air before early December. So to gain time, we'll try to record whenever we can. So I'm going to give you a few more news before we go to the airport. We talked obviously about Emirates last episode about the new orders they gave of Boeing aircrafts of the Dreamliner, which is very interesting. Two things. One thing I didn't know, one thing I forgot. The one thing I forgot is that our assessment we did last episode, thinking how clever they were to get Dreamliners. The one thing we forgot to mention is that they're also moving in the 2020s, so the next decade, to Al Maktoum, the other airport, which will be massive. They won't have as much of a capacity issue that they currently have at Dubai International Export, DXB, which means it's perfect to have more point-to-point as well. That adds to our point about point-to-point strategy.
Yeah, it is clever. They've been it's such a huge component of that region's economy that they really have had to think carefully about it. And they have. They obviously have. The long-range thinking is so impressive.
Of course, they're also ordering 777X, also 777-9s, etc. There was a picture, I don't know if you've seen it, of the engine that will be put on this. So they're starting to test the engine.
No, I haven't.
I don't have it in front of me. You have to look it up. They retrofitted the engine to transport it on a 747. It's so big. So it's the largest engine ever built. It's bigger than current engines with 777, which are already massive. And they had to put it slightly forward on the wing, as number 2 engine on the 747, because it's so big that it would otherwise touch the ground. So it's slightly in front and leveled up in order to avoid touching the ground. I'll say, guys, I'll put the link in the show note. I'll send you the picture, Alex. It's pretty impressive. Anyway, I said, there's one thing I forgot to mention, that Al Maktoum, the one thing I didn't know, maybe you did, but we didn't mention either last time, is that when they made that announcement for Dreamliners, so the 787, the big order they did, actually, in the same room, the press release for 380s was ready. The media was invited. Airbus execs were in the room. The first dignitaries had arrived, and suddenly there was confusion, like it happened, like big events, if there's a wait. And suddenly they bring this cloth with an aircraft under it, which turned out not to be the 380, but turned out to be the Dreamliner with Emirates livery. Wow. So meaning two things. First, the discussion between Emirates and Airbus were about to say, we will order more 380s, which clearly didn't happen. But also the way they did it is it's a power move on Airbus, saying, you know what, you don't want to promise us anything. In front of you, we're going to actually order Dreamliners.
Yeah, that's a pretty aggressive move. I rather like it, actually.
Me too, but holy cow. It is a massive blow for Airbus already, but this is wow. And too bad for John Leahy, the legendary, because that was his last show. He's leaving. He's going to be replaced by Eric Schultz from Rolls-Royce. So he's going to be the new head of customer for Airbus. But anyway, wow, I would have loved to be in the room just to see them.
As a spectator, it's pretty amazing to watch.
And that's not even Al Baker doing that, right? Since I just mentioned the 380, we talked also last episode about what's going to happen with the second market for the 380. So you mentioned that BA might actually buy some. We'd still
there's rumors still going around about that.
But apparently, there's a Portuguese company that's going to acquire 2 380s, iFly. That's the name of the company. They want to run this more of a charter, leisure type of airline. And they say, so they're going to acquire 2. And then the rest, they will acquire seasonally. So they only use seasonally. So, which tells you, if a leasing company allows an airline to say, we're just going to use your aircraft seasonally, so probably for the summer with a lot of people, enough for the rest of the year, it means that they have literally no one else to lease the plane to.
Yeah, that's not very good.
But more importantly, there's this company called Amadeo, which is a leasing company. They are the one of the companies that has made a bet on 380s back in the days and is leasing it to a lot of airlines in the world. They don't know what to do with those aircrafts. And Amadeo, which again is a leasing company, it's not an airline, is thinking about launching its own airline.
And that's
only with 380s. And next year, it's not going to be a full-fledged airline, but they're going to sell seats to other airlines. So they're going to be basically helping other airlines where they have capacity issues.
Interesting. That we're even talking about this, I think, sums up the secondary market for the A380.
Yes, I actually. What else? Yeah, we're going to go to the airport now. So Osaka International Airport, International Airport.
It is an international airport with no international flights. It is exclusively domestic flights, which it shows the ambition of it. It's actually quite a contentious airport. There's a lot of regional and local politicians that want to see it go away because they are wanting to expedite and increase the development of additional high-speed railway, including maglev.
Yeah, because maglev is supposed to link Tokyo to Osaka and basically very close to the existing airport. That maglev will go at 550 kilometers an hour or something? It was
just
super
extraordinarily fast. And it won't happen for a while. We're talking at least 15 years, but they don't want any more investment in this quote unquote international airport. So it's not the most glamorous airport in the world, but it worked beautifully for us. We flew from there to Kumamoto in Kyushu, southern Kyushu. The great thing about this airport is that it's a breeze to get to compared to Kansai, which is sitting out in Osaka Bay, and it takes a long time to get to. Osaka International, Itami, is 20 minutes from the center of Osaka, so it's absolute joy to get to. What caught me and Greg by surprise is that we had checked luggage, and you have to queue up and put your bag through a screener before you go to a check-in desk, which took time, actually. Quite a long time. We had the same experience at Fukuoka as well, but not at Haneda, which is interesting. So I wonder if it's only a domestic thing.
No, because, no. Back in my days, there was no such thing. I didn't fly to that airport, but other domestic airports that I've done in Japan. I don't remember this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It was both of our domestic flights. We had the same experience at different airports. But, it took longer than we expected because we didn't expect it at all. But, of course, it was handled with wonderful Japanese efficiency. But actually, it's the third busiest airport in Japan.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very busy, obviously primarily with JAL and ANA traffic. It seems like it's going through a pretty big, and in fact, a lot of the airports in Japan seem to be going through fairly substantial overhauls, Itami included, and the facilities airside, there weren't a lot, but there was enough to keep us.
But then again, when you mentioned that people will board a plane in 20 minutes, with the efficiency that you can assume, there's not a lot of reason to be super early in the airport.
Yeah, that's true, and there's enough places where that you can get takoyaki. There's a little takoyaki stall there. There's a pork bun chain, and there's a ramen joint, but it's not like Kansai where you've got some really, really, really good food. But yeah, it was fine. It was a very easy experience. Like I said, everybody boarded beautifully. You had the scan your own boarding pass gates to get onto the airplane, but of course you were assisted with that process very politely. Very interesting.
Everywhere in the world now you have these more and more automation, because there's always like someone, right? But interestingly, because I landed at Narita, and sorry, we'll go back to Itami guys in a minute. Now they also automated part of the immigration process. There's actually machines, but again, the machines are there, and for each machine, there's an operator next to it.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, fine. But
yeah,
anyway,
absolutely, that's kind of what it felt like, but. It's a nice, efficient little airport. It was Itami Air Base for the longest time, and then it transitioned into. But the runways aren't very long, and actually it can't handle that many hourly flights. Only 18 per hour, but that's not an operational restriction. That's a political restriction.
I was about to say it because it's close to the city. You guys remember when we talked about episode 50, Narita, also KIX. I don't remember which episode it was, which is a nearby airport. Every single airport in Japan seemed to have some type of convoluted political fight behind it. The locals are like, this is going to make too much noise. Not that it doesn't happen anywhere else, but like you said, I think they have very heavy restrictions on the number of flights, the capacity of those flights, the time of those flights, the speed at which you, of course, land for noise, etc., which makes it very not, great to expand as an airport.
And I think that's been the nub of this whole political issue, and it really is a cause of friction. It's been a cause of friction for 50 years, and I think what they're planning on doing is to maintain the operational capacity in terms of how many flights per hour, but actually limit the size of the airplanes as well.
That's also what led actually to the construction of KIX, which
Yes.
is much more recent, which is truly international, but also very large. And it's an island. It's a man-made island, which there's no such things as noise issues because there's no neighbors, basically. But there's still a fight. There still are some politicians in Japan. Some of them are very, not only in Japan, come on, everywhere. They're very keen to maintain because there's a sense of pride of having an airport, and they don't want to see it die. And you still have some politicians in the region that, despite all of this, want to see an expansion of Itami, or at least a non-reduction, and are against some of the flights being diverted in the future to KIX, which is part of the plan, because KIX is not a capacity at all. There are a lot of international flights, but not enough to kind of justify the size of it. And you could actually accommodate much more of domestic flights. But again, and like you said, there's no current real good rail link from KIX to Osaka proper.
It takes ages, and if you're flying 35 or 40 minutes from somewhere to somewhere within Japan, and then you've got to take an hour to get from the airport into Osaka itself, well, are you going to? You're not going to bother, and that's why I think this airport is important. And I understand where they're coming from with the maglev, but that's not going to be operational for a long time.
Some people say even 2050. So we're talking, and that's, the earliest, I'm probably going to be dead by the time this thing actually takes off, and no, it's not going to take off actually, because if it takes off, everybody dies in the train.
Bigger problems to worry about. I hope that they continue to operate, because it was a nice, efficient airport to get through. Everybody was very charming. It had the old school flicker board destination guides, which was lovely. It was, it was starting to show its age, and you can understand now why that's happening.
To be fair, because I don't think we mentioned it, it used to be an international airport.
Yes.
So there were international flights at some point. Of course, we're talking about a time in the 60s and before, basically, and a bit in the 70s. BA was going there, Korean Air was going there, Pan Am, fantastic Pan Am. Pan Am was going there, United was going there, and Northwest as well, I think, and a few others were going there. So it was an actual, because Osaka is it the second largest city in Japan, I think?
Third.
Well, Yokohama?
Kyoto.
Not really? Oh, okay. So I think the official name is still Osaka International Airport, but everybody calls it like Itami, right?
Yeah, and they make a point of reinforcing the fact that it's Osaka International Airport.
They do? Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. There's one quirk, and you probably know about this as well, and to be frank, I found that on the Wikipedia page of that airport that I found fascinating. It was the fact that because we talk sometimes in this show about Fifth Freedom routes, and how, for instance, between Milan and New York, which I'm about to get to, and I looked into it, and I didn't take Emirates. And much earlier than we thought, there was a fight there in that airport, because Northwest was flying from the US to Osaka and then going to Australia, and Australians were kind of saying, hey guys, you're kidding us, you're not actually flying Americans to Australia, you're stopping in Osaka, all the Americans pretty much are leaving, and you boarding Japanese to come here. And it led to a big fight. The Americans were about to put some measures, boycott measures against Qantas, and ended up that, they made an agreement. I think Norway artificially limited the number of Japanese that could board the plane in Osaka to Australia.
Actually, you know what? I was wrong about it is Yokohama.
Oh, okay.
Tokyo, Yokohama, Osaka.
Okay, because Yokohama, we have people listening to us from Japan. Hi, guys. And hi, by the way, our friends, Shin, Chris, Steve, Joseph, all those guys are listening to us. I know, Frankie. And we have guys listening to us from Yokohama. But when you live there, it feels like, and you're going to hate me, guys, for saying that Yokohama is almost the same city as Tokyo, because there's no, almost it doesn't stop. They're so big that they linked to each other. There's not suddenly there's nothing and then another city starts. So for me, in my head, sometimes I always kind of consider Yokohama as part of Tokyo. Now everybody's going to hate me. Stop listening to this. I know they are two different cities, but for the first time when you go there, you're like, oh, am I already in a new city? Especially when you take the train and you see the scenery. It doesn't stop having buildings.
Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, there's never not something.
Exactly. Last thing about the airport for me, and then I'm going to ask you if it was a good airport for a layover. Last thing about, for me, it's still baffling how many airports the Japanese have built. They are building. They are really way too many airports, probably local airports. Again, maybe because of the pride. I understand what you said about the convenience, because you have KIX, so the big one, which is a 1 hour drive or 1 hour limousine bus, because again, there's no real proper rail, which is planned at some point, but there's none. So it's an hour drive, which is fine. I agree with you that it's maybe too long to go for a short haul flight. But on the opposite side of the bay at KX is Kobe International Airport, UKS. This is, so the government wanted to move the federal, there's no such a thing federal, but the national government agreed to move most of the operation to KIX because of the fight you mentioned, the court cases and etc. So Kobe lost. Kobe couldn't actually create an airport. The politician at Kobe said, okay, we're going to agree with KX being built. And then they said, you know what, we're going to finance an airport anyway. So they have another man-made island, which is literally opposite of KIX, which is very small compared, because there's like literally no flights. And that airport from Osaka is about 40 minutes by car and an hour and 20 minutes by train. So you have like these three airports next to each other, and they're fighting for capacity. It's not, I mean, there are big cities, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have one large, very big airport with very efficient links than having 25 airports next to each other. I don't know. So was it a good airport for layover?
I don't think it would be a great airport for a layover, but it was a joy to transition through.
I'll try it one day. I have to. Now that I've met Alex in the years after I've left Japan, I've become more of a plane guy than a train guy. And the next time I'm going to stay in Japan for a bit longer, I'm not going to use a Shinkansen. I'm going to fly all over the place like he does. Before we move to our next flights, a quick shout out to the guys at My Flights. My Flights is an app that's very similar to TripIt, etc., which I always found very good because it tracks directly your Amadeus booking. So it's very, very efficient. Sadly, the guys are closing it up on the 31st of December after almost 10 years of work. So guys, hats off for having built this little thing that was really, really good. And it's due to the fact that Amadeus, out of security reasons, is changing the way bookings are being tracked, and a small startup like My Flights cannot cope with the workload. So guys, thank you so much, and Godspeed. I hope you're going to do other stuff in the airline industry. So what about you? What are your next flights besides Luxembourg tomorrow?
Newcastle, so a domestic flight on an A321 actually with with BA, and then Milan Linate.
The one. Okay, so we'll do it one of these days then.
Yeah, I've been there before, briefly. But I'm looking forward to that. And I just want to give a shout out to my friends Jack and Fran, who, you're going to love this. They came down to celebrate Thanksgiving with us recently, and they drove down from around the Manchester area and listened to not one, but two Layovers episodes on the way down.
Guys, I love you.
Some dedication right there. I was impressed. They actually found out my wife was pregnant by listening to the podcast. So they arrived and they were like, "Oh, you were serious."
And apologies to our friend Graham Kingshot. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. He said that I was talking way too fast in the previous episode. Yeah, I wanted to cram too many things. This time I tried to speak a bit slower. My brain has something, an illness called brain vomit. I think about too many things at the same time, and I speak super fast. So I'm really sorry. I'm going to be trying to not care about the clock that I see in front of me because it's a long episode again, and try to talk a little bit slower. As for me, I'm flying with United. My God.
I can't wait to hear about this. I want it to be a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm flying business class. It's not the newest business class. I'll tell the story. You know what? I've been bashing, I'll admit, United a lot. And I said, for once, of course, again, it's going to be business class. I will test whether or not I'm going to be reaccommodated. And as for the other flights, the Middle East, as I mentioned earlier, we'll record whenever we can. And until then, happy flying.
Happy flying, guys.